that Chelsea's home stadium, Stamford Bridge, can seat just 40,000 fans? That's pretty embarrassing for a top European club like the Blues. However, plans are underway to change all that with recent talks of a mega renovation. But what direction should Chelsea go? Who's paying for the renovation? And is a mega renovation really the best move for Chelsea right now? There's a lot to get into, but first, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Visionary Builds. The need for change. Now, Stamford Bridge is one of the most iconic stadiums in English football, but if you've ever tried to get a ticket for a big Chelsea game, you'll know how hard it can be. The stadium only holds about 40,000 people, which might sound like a lot, but compared to other top clubs, it's actually quite small. Manchester United's Old Trafford can fit over 74,000 fans. Arsenal's Emirates Stadium holds around 60,000. Even Tottenham, Chelsea's London rivals, have a brand new stadium that seats over 62,000. When comparing these numbers, it's clear that Chelsea's falling behind in terms of stadium size, and that's a big problem for a club that wants to compete at the highest level. Of course, a smaller stadium means fewer fans get to experience the magic of match days. Because every week, thousands of Chelsea supporters struggle to get tickets because there just aren't enough seats available. For big games like Champions League nights or crucial Premier League clashes, tickets sell out almost immediately. This isn't just frustrating for fans who want to be there, it also means the club's missing out on a huge amount of money that could be used to improve the team, buy better players, and strengthen the squad. More seats mean more ticket sales, and more ticket sales mean more money. And in today's football world where clubs are spending hundreds of millions on transfers, every extra source of income matters. But ticket sales aren't the only financial issue. Match days bring in money from food, drink, merchandise, and hospitality packages, and bigger stadiums with more modern facilities make more money in these areas. Take Tottenham Stadium as an example. It has luxury hospitality areas, high-end restaurants, and even its own brewery. The extra revenue from these facilities help the club stay financially strong. Stamford Bridge, on the other hand, is much older and doesn't have the same kind of modern features. So, by expanding and rebuilding the team, Chelsea could create a better fan experience while also increasing their matchday income. Then there's the issue of keeping up with the competition, because as we all know, football isn't just about what happens on the pitch, it's about building a global brand. Clubs with bigger stadiums can attract more international fans, host major events, and even bring in new sponsorship deals. Real Madrid and Barcelona all have massive stadiums that allow them to both dominate financially and in terms of global recognition. Chelsea wants to be in that conversation, but with Stamford Bridge being one of the smallest stadiums among Europe's elite clubs, they're at a disadvantage. There's also the simple fact that football's changed a lot since Stamford Bridge was first built. The demand for tickets is higher than ever, and fans want modern stadiums with comfortable seating, better food options, and a top-quality matchday experience. Right now, Chelsea's home is falling way behind in these areas, and if they want to stay as one of the biggest clubs in the world, they need to make a change. But how can Chelsea approach these changes, and what realistic options do they have? Let's take a look. Option 1. Expanding Stamford Bridge. One of the most obvious solutions to Chelsea's stadium problem is to expand Stamford Bridge. The idea is simple. Add more seats, make the stadium bigger, and increase revenue, but in reality, it's harder than you think. First of all, Stamford Bridge is not like other football stadiums that have plenty of open space around them. It's tightly squeezed into a busy part of London, making any expansion a serious challenge. Chelsea Stadium is surrounded by train tracks, roads, and buildings. To the west, you got the railway line leading to Fulham Broadway Station, and to the east, you have the famous Fulham Road, which is packed with shops, businesses, and residential buildings. There's barely any room to stretch out, let alone add thousands of new seats. So expanding would mean either building over the railway or somehow finding a way to move roads and structures. And that's not something you can do overnight. Then there's the historical issue. Stamford Bridge might not be as old as some of England's other famous stadiums, but it has deep roots in history. One major problem is the view of St. Augustine's Church, which dates back to the time of King Henry VIII. Local laws protect this view, meaning any major construction that blocks it could be stopped before it even starts. So even if Chelsea wants to build upwards, they would have to deal with strict building codes that would slow things down or prevent expansion entirely. Then there's the cost. Adding more seats and expanding a stadium in such a tight space would require a huge amount of engineering work. Building over the railway line, for example, would mean constructing large support structures to hold up newsstands. That's not cheap. In fact, estimates suggest even a partial expansion could cost hundreds of millions of pounds. And for all that effort, Chelsea might only gain an extra 10,000 to 15,000 seats, which is not enough to compete with Europe's biggest clubs. Finally, let's not forget about the disruption. Expanding Stamford Bridge wouldn't just affect Chelsea, it would impact the whole neighborhood. Construction would likely take years, with roads being closed and train services being affected, which means the fans, local residents, and businesses would all have to deal with the chaos. So, while expanding Stamford Bridge sounds like a good plan on paper, in reality, it's a logistical nightmare, and that's why Chelsea has also considered another option: tearing it all down and starting fresh. Option 2, rebuilding on the same spot. Now, if expanding Stamford Bridge isn't the best option, then why not just tear it down and build a new stadium in its place? That's another idea Chelsea has explored, and while it sounds like a great way to get a modern, world-class stadium, it also comes with major challenges. The first and most obvious issue is where Chelsea would play while the new stadium is being built. Knocking down Stamford Bridge means the club needs a temporary home, and that's not easy to find. The ideal choice would be Wembley Stadium, but that comes with its own problems. Renting Wembley is expensive, and Chelsea would have to share it with other teams and events. Tottenham Hotspur did something similar when they were rebuilding their stadium, but it wasn't a smooth sailing. Chelsea fans would have to travel further for home games, and it could hurt the club's atmosphere and ticket sales. Another option would be moving to a smaller stadium like Craven Cottage or Twickenham, but neither of these locations are perfect. Craven Cottage, home to Fulham, is too small, and Twickenham is designed for rugby, not football. Then, once again, there's the issue of space. Stamford Bridge is in a tight location, which means building a new stadium would require smart planning. Some experts believe Chelsea could build the new stadium in phases, keeping part of the old stadium open while constructing new sections. But that would extend the construction timeline and create a mess for fans attending matches. And of course, there's the financial cost. Building a brand new stadium in the same spot could cost Chelsea over £1.5 billion. That is a huge investment, even for a club as wealthy as Chelsea. The owners would need to justify the cost by proving that the new stadium would significantly increase revenue. More seats mean more ticket sales, but with modern football shifting toward TV and sponsorship deals, the big question is whether such a big investment is really worth it. But beyond the financial aspect, there's also the emotional side to consider. Stamford Bridge has been Chelsea's home since 1905. Fans have memories, traditions, and a deep connection to the place. Tearing it down completely and replacing it with something new would change the identity of the club in many ways. Some fans might embrace it as progress, but others could feel like they're losing a piece of Chelsea's history. So, while rebuilding Stamford Bridge could give Chelsea a world-class home for the future, it's not a decision that can be taken lightly. The club must weigh the benefits against the risks and challenges before moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, would moving to an entirely different location be the best move for the Blues? Option 3. Moving to a new location. Now, Chelsea moving to a brand new location sounds exciting, right? A fresh start, a massive stadium, and a chance to build something from scratch. But here's the thing, it's not that simple. Because finding the right place in London is like trying to find a parking spot in a packed shopping mall on a Saturday afternoon. It's nearly impossible. Still, one of the most talked about locations for a possible move is Earl's Court. It's just a few miles from Stamford Bridge and has plenty of space for a massive modern stadium. Chelsea could design something state-of-the-art with more seats, better facilities, and all the fancy upgrades that come with a brand new build. This sounds like a dream, but hold on, because the roadblocks are massive, and one of these roadblocks is still space. London's one of the busiest cities in the world, and large plots of land aren't just sitting around waiting for a football club to claim them. Earl's Court was once home to a huge exhibition center, but since it's been torn down, there have been big plans for housing and commercial developments. Snagging that land for a stadium would mean negotiating with developers, local authorities, and residents. And trust me, getting everyone on the same page is like herding cats. Then there's the cost. Building a brand new stadium from scratch is incredibly expensive. As you can imagine, Chelsea would want to go all out and build a state-of-the-art stadium, and this will shoot up the cost significantly. But we'll talk about how much this will cost later on in the video. But here's where things get even trickier. Stamford Bridge isn't just any old stadium. The land it sits on is controlled by a group called the Chelsea Pitch Owners. This group, made up of mostly fans, owns the rights to both the stadium's land and the name Chelsea Football Club. That means if the club wants to move, they need approval from this group. And guess what? They've rejected moves before. In 2011, then-owner Roman Abramovich tried to buy back the land rights to clear the way for a move, but the Chelsea Pitch Owners voted against it. Why? Because many fans don't want Chelsea to leave Stamford Bridge. It's been their home for over a century. The history, the memories, the special connection, It's all tied to that stadium. Some fans believe moving would strip away the club's identity, turning Chelsea into just another modern super club without its historic soul. So, while moving sounds like an easy fix, it's actually the hardest option. Between finding land, dealing with local opposition, securing huge amounts in funding, and convincing the Chelsea pitch owners to sign off, it's an uphill battle. Will it happen? Maybe. But if it does, it won't happen anytime soon. Financial considerations. Now, building or expanding a stadium isn't cheap, especially as Chelsea isn't just looking at a small upgrade. We're talking about a project that could cost around £1.5 billion, which is more than what some entire football clubs are worth. And it's not something that can be done overnight, as a new stadium could take up to 7 years to complete, which is a long time in football. In that period, the club's going to need to figure out where to play their home games. Would it be Wembley, Twickenham, somewhere outside London? No matter what, it won't feel like home. That could affect both the team's performance and fan engagement. But let's say Chelsea decides to build a new stadium. Where's that money coming from? A stadium this expensive needs serious funding, and the owners will have to decide whether to take out loans, get outside investors, or raise ticket prices to help cover costs. Of course, many investors will be more than happy to be a part of a Chelsea project, since it's already one of the biggest clubs in Europe. Also, Chelsea has the financial credibility to take on loans, so that area is covered too. But the real fundraising headache might actually come from the fans if the club decides to raise ticket prices. And let's be real, fans aren't going to be happy if prices go through the roof. On top of that, a construction project this big comes with risks. What if costs go higher than expected? What if there are delays? Tottenham Stadium was supposed to open in 2018 but got delayed by months, which was a huge headache, and Chelsea's going to want to avoid something like that. As we speak, talks are still ongoing to decide the best route to take. But what do you think is Chelsea's best option here? Expand? Rebuild on the same spot? Or build a new stadium in a completely different location? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We're committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more visionary builds.